What happens when a partner at a leading consulting firm ventures into entrepreneurship? You get a visionary like Parijat Jain. Parijat is an IIT IIM alum who worked in consulting for 17 years before pursuing his one true purpose, writing. Dive into this podcast to follow Parijat's journey, learn what it takes to become a partner at Bain, and why he went on to write books for 9th and 10th graders.
Thank you, Parijat, for taking up the time. Thank you for having me. Parijat, if I do a quick show of hands, pretty much 80 to 90% of the people would want to say that I want to do consulting post their undergrad, right? And the reasons for the answer will be very different. For some, it will be, what, I'm not figuring out what I want to do, and so I want to do consulting. Okay. For others, it would be, I genuinely want to do consulting. And for some, it would be, maybe I want to learn something and be in a fast-paced environment while serving high-ticket clients. The answer would eventually triangulate to consulting. So I would love to understand a little bit about your journey and how you sort of landed to be in partnership and thought about building something in education. Thank you all for spending your time listening to me. Great to be here. So just a little bit about what I've done. A lot of it was covered. Whatever was worth saying was covered. But I mean, my schooling from different cities because my parents were actually in a bank. So we would get transferred every 3-4 years. So I went to school in Ambala, in Chandigarh, in Jaipur, in Delhi, prepared for IIT. I knew one thing that I didn't want to become a doctor, and I loved math.
So, and this is 25 years ago. So, I gravitated towards engineering. I was lucky enough to get a decent rank, get into IIT Delhi, did dual degree engineering in chemical engineering, and then went on to IIM Ahmedabad. And very interestingly, as he mentioned, got a PPO from Goldman, but did not end up joining it. And the reason for that is a couple of things. One, Bain was just starting to open, to start the practice in India, and it was an amazing time to be a part of something that was growing and was going to get built. And that was the primary reason to join Bain. And also for personal reasons, I wanted to stay in India. So I joined Bain in 2006, spent a year in Bain, Singapore. And the reason for that was because there weren't that many people in Bain, India to kind of, consulting is an apprenticeship business, and we'll talk a little bit more about consulting. But, you need people who are, let's say, 2 or 3 years above you, one level above you to actually teach you the job. There weren't that many people. So when I was an associate consultant, you would need consultants and managers to actually tell you what to do. All of us who joined in 2005 was actually the first year Bain hired from campus in India. 2005, I was the batch of 2006, and we all went to different offices across the Bain system, learned the job, and then came back. And then I spent a lot of my time in India and also doing some cases in the Middle East. And consulting is an incredible journey. It's a very rewarding journey if that is something that you enjoy. And I truly used to enjoy many aspects of consulting, and I'm happy to talk about that. But that was really my journey. Spent 17 years in Bain, and when you're at the age which I am, so you then figure out what do you want to do for the next 15-20 years of your life, and whether it was to continue at Bain and doing consulting, or try to build something in education, which I'm extremely passionate about. So I made the hard decision to leave Bain last year. And now I've started to work on my idea of building something in education.
Parijat, so borrowing from my experience, right, one of the other critical skills that I felt was very useful was the ability to present to a client both with written correspondence and verbal correspondence, right? So let's say even writing an email or penning a deck which is client ready or client consumable, or let's say making a presentation while there's some crisis happening, some EM was absent or some partner couldn't make it because the flight got cancelled, and you are there to sort of resolve the crisis or at least hold the fort for some time. That was something that consulting really enabled me to do, right? So a lot of public speaking, and that too crisis management.
And I think communication skills, by the way, a lot of you will have will probably take courses on communication skills, business communication. Essentially, a lot of the input that will go into making you guys professionals will be along the lines of teaching you knowledge and skills, but also teaching you communication. And I would say there is no better ground for business communication training than consulting firms. So you get training while you're at Bain, and I'm sure BCG and McKinsey also do the same. But there is a lot of emphasis on in-house training, and especially in written communication, in verbal communication. There are aspects of communication that I feel, when I graduated from IIT Delhi, for example, I wasn't really great at communicating. So a lot of my development as a communicator happened while I was at Bain.
And the perfect segue to the conversation, Parijat. So you mentioned you graduated from IIT Delhi and you going to Bain. From IIT Delhi, from IIM Ahmedabad. So what are the skill sets? Obviously, things have changed quite a bit from then and now, right? When you were interviewing versus now you are on the recruiting side. So what are the skill sets that you typically look for when you are hiring a consultant?
So, again, I'm no longer at Bain, but I did a lot of recruiting for Bain for a long time. And essentially for consulting specifically, I think what people look for is, and they will term it as a spike. Your resume should have a spike. Now that spike is basically exceptional performance in a particular area. If you have a spike on academics, means you've done better than, let's say, 95% of your class. If you have a spike on sports, then let's say you've played at state or you played at national or international level, you've played a sport. If you have a spike in some extracurricular activities, let's say debating or dramatics or whatever it is, you have some awards that are of, that are significantly difficult to achieve or get, right? Now, why is it that consulting firms are asking for that, right? And the reason is very simple, that if you have a spike in anything that's built over a period of time, it denotes perseverance. You can't get great at a sport and win a few medals if you don't persevere. You can't build a good GPA in a college if you don't persevere and perform over a long period of time. You can't, build a hobby or anything of significance without persevering and persisting at that skill or work for a period of time. And that's exactly what consulting firms are looking for. They are looking for signs or signals that you can persevere at anything and achieve excellence over a period of time. So it could be academics, it could be extracurriculars, it could be something else.
Got it. So guys, take your GPA seriously.
Take your GPA seriously, and we'll talk about a couple of other things as well. But take your GPA seriously. Take what you do seriously. Don't take yourselves very seriously, but take the work that you do quite seriously.
In terms of just consulting as a business, Parijat, and you've been there for 17 long years. How have you seen it evolve? I remember when we were graduating, right? There was still that time wherein it was at that inflection point where there were some firms, some clients which are okay with just doing strategy or hiring consultants for strategy. But then there were others who wanted the consultants to not just do strategy, but also eventually move to implementation. And from then to now, how do you think the sort of function has evolved?
I think it's a great question. See, at any stage, what does a company want, right? Or any corporate entity want? It's, okay, 99.9% of the times, all corporate entities are what we call for-profit entities, right? So their job is to maximize shareholder value, okay? And again, most of the times, the maximization of shareholder value is through increasing profits. Now, you can increase profits, again, by doing all those things. You can grow the business, you can enter new products, you can reduce your costs, etc., etc. And I think one of the most important things over there is, how does a company use consultants to achieve that end goal? So, for example, there have been many client engagements where I have been asked by the client that we have a certain amount of equity, let's say 1,000 crores or 2,000 crores to invest. We have this cash to invest. we have money to invest, but we don't know what to invest in. So India is an opportunity-rich environment. We know that there's going to be a significant value that's going to get created across different parts of the economy. Tell us, where should we invest? Which business should we start, right? So usually at Bain, that's what we used to call an engine 2 problem. Like, which engine 2? If I have a business that's a stable business, that's actually profitable, it's churning out cash, and I want to invest money and build another business, which business should I invest in, right? Now, if you're going to invest 2,000 crores or 5,000 crores or pick a number, whatever that number is, you really want to see one, thorough analysis, but also the right kind of capability, right? So I may be able to do one type of business, but not another type of business. And that's because I have certain organizational capabilities. So I think those are, again, types of problems. Now, to coming to your question about how consulting has changed. When I started doing consulting about 18 years ago, a company would ask the question and we would do, let's say, a 3-month assignment, and then that was probably the end of it. Over the last few years, the company would say, I really don't want you to just tell me the answer. I want you to help build that business with me. And it's a much longer engagement where you actually help implement the advice that you give. And most of the times, the projects that are most successful are the ones that help clients implement the advice that consultants give them.
Awesome. Thank you, Parijat. And Parijat, I'll ask you this question because also Masters Union is labeled as this startup school, and most of the students here would want to either do some form of startup, they already have a startup, or they would aspire to work for a startup, right? And this is a problem that's noted in consulting, or maybe not a problem, but something, I would say, a caveat that's brought about in consulting, which is when you are advising clients and you are in that position, you never get a chance to see the impact. You just tell the client, oh, this is what you should be doing. But that doesn't become your baby eventually. You don't get to see the light at the end of the tunnel, which is why a lot of professionals have short consulting careers, 3 years, 4 years eventually, and they move to startups or legacy companies. What is your take on that? Is that changing, or is it largely similar, or is it largely a function of what is the individual's aspiration?
One of the challenges, as I told you, is duration plays an important part in any consulting project. And therefore, the longer the duration is, the more chances you have of creating an impact. Now, I think the tenure of consulting assignments has been increasing. During my time at Bain, it increased significantly. But going back as far as 2012, one of my first assignments as an engagement manager, I was a new engagement manager in 2012, late 2011, early 2012. I worked on a case on Godrej Properties, and it's publicly, that information is available publicly. And Godrej Properties themselves said that, we launched Project Pyramid with Bain and Company, and I was the engagement manager actually on that case for a couple of years. And we created phenomenal impact, right? All now must have heard of Godrej Properties. It's one of the leading national real estate developers in the country. But at that time, it had just started on that journey, and we played. I would like to assume a meaningful part in making that transition and that development happen.
Parijat, any advice that you have for young students who are about to start their academic journey? I think you had some exercise prepared.
Yeah. So this is where I stop talking and you guys start doing some work. There's a paper. I'm kidding. There's no exam. But there's a video. I want all of you guys to see the video. But before we start the video, the next few minutes, hopefully, a lot of this was about my journey in consulting and my career. Hopefully, you got something out of that. But if you've not understood anything so far, don't worry. Hopefully, you will understand something that's coming. But keep in mind that what we're going to be talking about is something that I want all of you guys to practice. If I was having a conversation with myself from 25 years ago, these are probably the 3 things that I would tell myself, right? So that's the kind of lens that I've taken while developing a set of messages for you guys. So just see this video and then we'll have a conversation. It's 2-minute video.
This is a story of an eagle. An eagle has the longest lifespan of its species. It can live up to 70 years. But to reach this age, however, the eagle must make some tough decisions. In its 40th year, its long, flexible talons can no longer grab prey, which serve as food. Its long, sharp beak begins to bend. Its old, aged, and heavy wings, due to their thick feathers, stick to their chest and make it difficult to fly. Then the eagle is left with only two options: die or go through the painful process of change. The process requires that the eagle fly to a mountaintop and sit on its nest. There, it knocks its beak against a rock until it plucks it out. Then the eagle will wait for a new beak to grow before it plucks out the talons. When the new talons grow back, the eagle starts plucking its thick, heavy feathers. And after this, the eagle takes its famous flight of rebirth and lives for another 30 years. Why is the change needed? To survive and live. We too have to start the change process. We also have to pluck our unpleasant memories, negative habits, and fixed mindset. Only freed from the past burdens can we take advantage of the present.
So what did you guys think of the video? What message does it have for you guys?
Change is important.
Change is important. Sorry?
Don't be afraid of change.
Don't be afraid of change. Okay.
Adapt to changes.
Adapt to changes. Okay.
Be ready to be uncomfortable.
Be ready to be uncomfortable. Okay.
Constantly improve.
Constant re-improvement. Very good.
Change can be difficult.
Change can be difficult. Yes, it's painful.
You need to challenge yourself instead of giving up.
Yeah. Challenge yourself instead of giving up. Brilliant.
To changes, you die.
If you don't adapt to changes, you die. Very good. What did you think of the video, the quality of the video? Who do you think made this video? National Geographic. Yeah? So that's exercise number 1. We don't have a lot of time. So contact Utsav, look at the video again, or you can go on your YouTube, not now, after the session, look at the video again. Okay? The message is important. Change is inevitable. You need to embrace change, be uncomfortable. I don't think any of those messages are wrong. But did any of you question the validity, or did any of you question that is the video correct? Is the data presented in the video correct? Do you think eagles actually pluck out their beaks and then take out their feathers and talons after 30 years? Sorry?
No, Sudarshan. I've heard this story already before.
Yes. So he can vouch for it. What's your name?
It's a reflect.
Ritvik. So Ritvik says he's heard the story before. So it must be true. Okay. Can you click on the... Okay, so here are some quotes. Amy Herndon, Jacksonville Zoo and Gardens. It's completely false. There isn't a shred of natural history truth to be teased out at all. There's a Raptor Center, University of Minnesota. Eagles generally do not pluck out their feathers. All birds go through this process of losing feathers called molt, etc., etc. You can read the quotes. Now, what do you think? Is the story true? The messages are fine. What you got from it was fine. What I'm trying to tell you is all of you have today is an abundance of data being thrown at you, right? You will WhatsApp University, Instagram, God knows all that whatever stuff you have. You have a ton of data being thrown at you, but what you don't know is what is true. Okay? It's extremely important. The message is, I honestly don't know if the eagles pluck out their feathers or they don't. I don't know. I haven't researched it. Okay? The first thing is, it's very easy to take you down a wrong path with information that seems credible. Because one thing I can say for sure, the video was not made by National Geographic. Okay? So the one thing that all of you must be very careful about is consuming data and then acting on it because you feel this data is right or this data is wrong. Do your own research. Try to find your own version of the truth. Right? Does that make sense? If you go to the next slide, the message I have for you is triangulate. And you would have heard this term, from consultants, from other people, triangulate. And when I say triangulate, look at the data that's coming to you, apply your own mind, apply your filters, your judgment, and then see whether that data makes sense or not. Right? It's extremely important because you will make decisions based on data. Like Ritvik said, a lot of you may have heard this, this story, oh, eagles do this or somebody else has done that. And that becomes a truth. It becomes a social truth because a lot of you believe it. And because a lot of my classmates believe something, it must be true. Well, it's not, right? And therefore, I think in this age where data availability will only increase, you must develop the ability to discern what is true and what is factual versus what is believable. You will find a lot of data that's believable, but it actually may not be true. And it's very easy for people to lead you down the wrong path, to get you to do things, to get you to buy things, to get you to act, spend your money, act in a particular way with promises that are completely false, and avoid that. Okay, so use your intellect, use your filters, and always triangulate the data that's coming to you. Right. The second question that I have for you is, what impacts you guys the most? Anything? What impacts you the most? Now you're in college, you were in school. All of them are joining now, right? Yeah. So they were in school, let's say last year. What impacts you the most? Your how you are feeling, what you want to do. What impacts you the most?
Perspective for families.
Perspective for family, okay.
The association, the people around us.
The people around you, sure.
Aspirations.
Your aspirations.
The challenges we face.
The challenges you face, yeah.
Competition from one another.
Competition from one another.
Goal.
Goals, personal goals, okay.
Seeing my dad work all day and night.
Seeing your dad work all day and night, that has an impact on you, sure. Yeah. What about peer pressure? Does that impact you?
Yeah, yes.
How many of you do things because your friends do it? Be honest. A lot of you, right? And that's not, it's not as if you are the first generation of young adults doing something because your friends are doing it. The second message I have for all of you is center yourself. And when I say center yourself, don't react to anything, okay? Don't be affected by other people's opinions. When I say other people's opinions, they could be your friends, they could be people walking on the road, they could be, your followers on Instagram. I don't care, right? But there are a set of people who you value in your life, maybe your parents, your siblings, your very close friends, whose opinion really matters to you, who will give you advice for your good, and you trust them, and that's fine. But do not be a football of other people's opinions. Do not give the trigger to your actions and your feelings to other people, okay? Because if I know that if you post something on social media, and this is especially important in the age of social media, like when I was in college, there was no social media, so we didn't have to deal with it. But today, if you put something on, I don't know, Instagram or something, and someone else, I don't know, posts a nasty comment, it affects a lot of people, is what I understand, right? I don't have an Instagram account, so I don't have a problem. But, and the last time I logged into Facebook was probably 2010. But at the same time, if it affects you, then really center yourself. Don't react, but respond, right? Think about it and respond. Don't get impacted by other people's opinions. You will end up doing things that other people want you to do and are probably not in your best interest. And for the last message, again, one question, but what's the most important or valuable commodity that you have? This is probably an easy one. Huh? Time. Okay, awesome. That's the right answer, by the way. Time. And what do you do with your time? Waste it. Truthful guy is like, I've recently come into college, and I'm going to waste my time. Okay. Anyone else?
Optimize it.
Optimize it. So at the other complete other end of the spectrum, so there's between waste and optimize, you kind of fill the entire spectrum. I would say invest your time. Okay, invest your time. It's an exceptional time in your lives, right? As I said, exactly 25 years ago, I remember the date. It was 26 July 1999. It was a Monday. It was my first day at IT Delhi. And if I was going back 25 years, there's probably a few things I would change. Not many things I would change, but one thing that I would definitely change is how I actually spent my time, across those last many years. Invest in yourself, learn new skills, learn a language, learn a new subject. If you're interested in more subject, audit the course. I don't know, whatever. In IT, we could audit the course, sit in the course without actually having to give the exam, but just learn. There are so many opportunities to learn new skills, learn a musical instrument. If you want to invest money in the stock market. Again, don't go by my friend's brother has bought this stock and therefore I should buy it. No, use your own intellect, do your own research, invest your money, invest your time, invest in yourself, and I think you'll all do very well. Yeah, so that, very briefly, those are my messages for you as I was thinking about what I would say to myself from 25 years ago.
You alluded to the fact that consulting is an apprenticeship model, and while you were an AC, you needed a batch of consultants for you to be sort of trained and set up for success, right? Which was not the most ideal environment when you had joined Bain. Right? So talk us through how consulting develops professionals.
Actually, it's very interesting. So, what do you do in consulting? Does anybody have an idea what happens in consulting? I'm sure you've heard of like BCG, Bain, McKinsey. What actually happens in consulting? Yeah.
There are just problem solvers for companies.
Sure.
So it is a very vague term, but it allows companies to have an outside perspective on their problems.
Sure. Yeah.
I think consultants, this is what I know about from the banking side. They are a legal way for the companies to give out commissions to the bankers.
Oh, wow.
This is what consultants are.
Bankers don't need consultants to pass on commissions. Huh? They are very good at taking commissions themselves.
They are, but for the for the bills or the receipts or the expenses which are shown by the company.
Okay.
So it's like many consultant. I have passed these are my expenses to the consultant, and the consultant is like, I've got this done for you.
Okay. Yeah, that doesn't happen for sure. Not in my knowledge. Anyone else? Yeah.
So, like, my father's a CA, so he's in consultancy. So, I've seen him, people coming to him with cost problem, how to be more cost effective, how to grow the business. So, maybe consultancy is having whatever the business you are and grow it into 2x, 3x with the help of the consultancy advices.
Yeah. Okay, great. So all valid answers apart from the second one. See, consultants, and when I say consultants, it's management consultants, right? So I was at Bain for 17 years. The kind of consulting that Bain does is, Bain, McKinsey, BCG, all three do similar type of projects. We serve similar type of clients, solve similar type of problems. But essentially, the term is management consulting. And what management consulting means is you're solving problems of companies. Now, that problem could be anything, right? A problem is defined as, could be a growth problem. So, a company has been, let's say, plateauing revenues for a little while. They want to grow and they want to know, how should we grow, right? Should we enter a new business? Should we enter a new geography? Should we think about a new product? Or, it could be about, my revenue is growing, but my margins are not growing in line with my revenue. So, how do I become more cost efficient? Or it could be that I want to grow and I want, let's say, I'm open to acquiring a particular company or a particular technology or a particular team, and I have these 5 choices, but I really don't know which one should I buy and whether I should do it or not. So the problem statement is very simple. Usually the problem statement ends up being, I want to maximize or create significant value for the company. And that is what a management consultant usually helps a company with, right? So as in my tenure, for example, I've helped companies design their growth strategy. I've helped companies implement cost programs. I've helped companies reorganize themselves so that the right people are in the right set of jobs, so that you are more tuned towards growth. So all those, I think, are examples of what a consulting firm does. But especially as you start your careers, I think what consulting does give you is an incredible ability to solve a large complex problem by breaking it down into smaller bits, right? And you'll hear this many times. You'll probably go on YouTube and you can ask anyone. They'll say, consulting will tell you how to solve a big complex problem, but basically it teaches you how to solve a large complex problem, how to take a complex problem, break it down into parts, and then solve it, in a messy way. I think that's quite important. And that's the skill that consulting gives you, which is incredibly useful in your first few years of your professional career. It's a very important skill to have.
I just love to open the floor for questions.
Sure.
Any questions on getting into consulting and be setting yourself up once you got into consulting, or the most interesting client for Parijat?
As you said that people usually like continue into consulting for 3 to 4 years max.
Do you think is it because in consulting?
He said it, I didn't say it.
Just adding on to his question, do you think it is because there's less growth in consulting? Like
Oh,
if I'm
wow.
employable there,
No, there is no less growth in consulting.
like if I go in tech, there's more growth. I see myself like
Sure. How do you define growth? Just give me a little bit. I mean, when you say growth, is it financial growth? Is it impact? Like how?
it's
How do you?
holistic. Like for me, what mostly matters is if I'm going into consulting,
Sure.
it should be like I'm just adding on to my skill set. Like it's not just problem solving. I'm just adding
You're
more
adding to
skills
your
to
skill
myself.
set. Sure. Yeah.
And yeah, financial also is done.
Versus, let's say, any other job like tech, etc.
Yeah, tech. Like if I'm maybe going into Silicon
Let's say
Valley.
Silicon Valley. Sure.
Yeah, I'm just working there into tech. Like
Yeah.
there's growth is amazing over there.
Hmm.
So people end up working like whole of their life over there. But in consulting, people end up like taking different paths after 3 to 4 years.
I think the one thing that consulting does give you is a lot of growth. And the way I would say what consulting helps you do is expand your horizons in terms of exposure to different industries and different business problems, right? But fundamentally in consulting, you have to be a problem solver because consultants are employed by clients to solve business problems. Now, you could be solving the business problem of a real estate company, you could be solving the business problem of a telecom company, you could be solving the business problem of a mining company, right? The problems will be different, the contexts in which the problems have arisen will also be different. So you get a lot of variety. You understand how value is generated across different businesses, right? To your point, let's say even tech in Silicon Valley, every tech company in Silicon Valley does not generate value in the same way as the other, right? The way Google generates value, and when I say value, it's value for the shareholders, value for the employees, etc. The way Google or Facebook would generate value for their shareholders would be different than the way Apple would, or any other company, Walmart. Take any company, and I think you understand what is it that creates value in any particular company. That is what consulting allows you to identify. It's a great skill set. It's a great skill set to have if you want to start your own company, if you want to understand how to run a company, if you want to understand how to form a team of motivated people and how to keep them motivated. There's no better ground, there's no better job than consulting for that, right? In 3-4 years, let's say at Bain, you'd be an engagement manager and you'd be leading a team of 4-5 highly motivated people who want to work but who also want to learn. So if you give them 2 free days and no work, they will actually not be happy. They will say my professional development skills are not being met. So it's a very dynamic environment. So I think you learn extremely quickly. So within, let's say, close to 10 years, I went from being an AC to a partner. And that's a very steep learning curve. So, and not a lot of people leave consulting because they don't find growth. A lot of people in consulting they also understand that sometimes they are not fit to do consulting, or they have other priorities at that point of time. So I don't think it's a question of growth, but every career is different. If you go into tech, maybe you like coding, maybe you like a particular aspect of product development, etc. Then do that. But I think consulting is a great option to have if solving business problems is what excites you.
Thank you so much. I have another question. Like AI has taken up whole of the market. So do you think consulting is drowning in this? Maybe generative AI will take up and all of that. I was currently deep diving into what Bain is doing in the AI part. So I don't see much. So do you think AI will take up something in that?
What Bain is doing in AI, I honestly don't know because I've left Bain in September last year and I was not involved in what Bain was doing with AI at all. So I have no inside knowledge of what Bain is doing in AI. But I would say that, and I can speak about consulting industry in general, right? So for example, you may or may not know, there was a time before Google when information was at a premium, right? And let's say in the 80s and 90s and even in the early 2000s, finding information was a premium, right? So if you could find information, you had an advantage, right? I remember sitting in my office in Goldman at 1 a.m. in the morning. I was trying to find, 10K report of a particular company. Okay, 10K is a financial statement, and because it was Goldman, there was a financial statement, and we needed to find it, and I couldn't find it. Right, I went to the company's website. I tried looking at all the financial disclosures and reports, etc. I couldn't find it. So the guy who was sitting next to me, and this is summer of 2005, right? April 2005. He said, Google it. Those guys are good. Google it, you may find it. And I opened google.com and I, typed this company 10K and, I could find it, right? So I'm just saying that there was a time when finding information was very important. Now when Google came and search became a lot easier, it's not as if consulting is irrelevant. Consulting actually grew a lot after information became very easily available, right? Similarly, I think what is happening with AI now is part of the analysis of the information is becoming easier, but that doesn't mean that it's the right analysis. I think the rule is the more complicated the world gets, the more difficult is it to find the right answer, right? So when I was growing up, it was actually exactly 25 years ago. In the summer of 99, I was in first year at IT Delhi, and I probably had 2.5 career options: doctor, engineer, and the other half was, try to become something in sports, right? Because cricket was still big and I used to play, but it was kind of half. I wasn't really good at it that I could make a career out of it, right? But those were kind of the only options I had. So the decision making was simpler. I didn't want to become a doctor. I loved maths. Give all the engineering exams and hopefully get into IIT, and then, you'll take it from there. Let's say going abroad wasn't an option, etc., etc. For many of us, it wasn't an option. But now you have more information. So do you need more help now, or do you think somebody who only had 2 options back 25 years ago would need more help?
It's complicated now
Yeah.
to decide.
And so you'll need help. You'll need student counselors. They'll charge you a lot of money. I don't have anything against student counselors charging a lot of money, but as the world gets complicated, you need quality advice, and I don't think that's going out of fashion in a hurry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There is so much oversaturation in the education space. What's that insight which made you leave Bain and move into making educational books for 9th to 12th grade students?
I think this question is the perfect segue for what we were about to talk about.
Yeah. So just so I understand your question correctly, you're saying that there is a lot of oversaturation, and define oversaturation.
I mean, just looking into the edtech space, looking into what has been happening with educational companies with the past 3 years.
Yeah.
Just by looking at that data, I'm coming to a conclusion that it's quite oversaturated. But looking into what you have been doing, into, another interesting thing is just hiring IITians, engineers to, move into making educational books. Maybe that's a blank space people are not looking into.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my conclusion on saying oversaturation.
Okay, great. You'll probably make, anyways. So I think the NNB, so I'll give you a little bit of background and then I'll answer your question. Education space is very interesting because education is a fundamental requirement of any society, right? All of you guys hopefully are getting educated here, and you spent a great part of your youth trying and hopefully getting educated, right? But high quality education is still not available to a large section of Indian students. So by any means, there are over, pick a number, tens of millions of students in India just in schools across the country, right? What percentage of students do you think have access to quality education, like the ones you have? Very few. Or you've had in schools, let's say, very few, right? And the constraints are, I would say, non-availability of high quality content, so content is a challenge. So you said oversaturation. There is an oversaturation, but actually the quality of content that you get even in books isn't great. So if you open a math book, not too long ago you guys were in school, right? So hopefully you will remember some of your 10th, 11th, 12th. Some of you would have done math, hopefully, right? There are books, and the books, math books or science books, I'm not naming any particular book, they're similar to the books that, let's say, I had when I was a student 30 years ago. And I can tell you life has changed in 30 years. There's nothing that I do today, or children in going to school today do the same way that that I used to do. We don't interact in the same way. A lot of your interactions with your friends are actually digital. We had no digital interaction because there was no means to do it. The way you consume data was very different. We just didn't have anything, right? So if you needed to find anything, I had to go to the library or read the newspaper or read an encyclopedia. And today you have phones and Google or whatever. So everything's changed, but the books have remained the same. The point that I'm trying to make is that there is a massive opportunity to kind of change the way things are done today. So I think that's on content itself. But the second thing is access. So my vision is to be able to provide as many students as possible in the country access to high quality content, high quality education, so that they don't just learn content, but they also develop skills, right? At an affordable price, 500, 700 rupees a year, right? And I think you'll hear this term quite a bit, employability. A lot of corporates are saying the graduates are unemployable, or the skills that we require as a corporate are not what are being given to the students in colleges, etc. And I think that's what I want to change. There is no reason in the world of today that you can't have high quality education, high quality content, high quality skills dissemination to a large number of students at an affordable price. So that's kind of my mission.
Through books?
No, books is step number one.
Okay. So you'll have multitude of resources or sources which will provide.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, and thanks Parijat for taking it so candidly. So just building on to your vision, I think you're already in progress in terms of some of the books that you've published, and there are plans in the future as well. Talk us through some of that.
Yeah, so I'm passionate about education. That's the reason I left Bain and I wanted to do something in education. And I'm passionate about writing. So writing books is a passion project. And I wrote a book on IIT JEE preparation. It's actually available on Amazon right now. I've written some books on English. I'm writing books on math. And the reason for that, maths book hopefully should come out in the next 2-3 months. I'm also excited about, by the way, you alluded to the point about getting folks to join my team. I'm really excited about one senior person who's going to be joining us to lead our English work over the course of the next few months. She's an absolutely fantastic addition to the team. But I think that's really step zero, right? Writing books enables me to have discussions, to understand what's available today, to have discussions with educators, with stakeholders, important stakeholders. Teachers are an important stakeholder. Students are obviously the most important stakeholders. School administrators are very important stakeholders. To understand what is available and what will make the change happen. Today, education just can't be disseminated physically, nor can it only be given digitally. It will have to be a combination. And this exercise of writing books and getting involved in the industry gives me that sense of where the gap is and where can I contribute. Is the most important use of my time to try and upskill 100,000 teachers? Is it to prepare the best quality content? Is it to figure out how to provide schools with learning management systems? Is it to actually work with the government and try and modify, the regulatory framework within which we do work? And those are all important questions. And till you actually are deep in a particular industry, you actually don't know the answers to these questions.
Awesome.
And if any of you have further questions, I think we will be available.
Yeah, I can share your email probably or coordinates.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you so much for your questions. Super engaging, interactive. Thank you, Parijat, for taking out the time.